Uh, Good evening, everyone. Today we have a presentation with Miss Annette Paul. It is about the changing world and work. Miss Annette is experienced in business consulting, research, and business analytics. Holds a master's in business management and doctorate in business administration, which is still building, I believe. And she has worked with experience with multinational institutions and organizations in Africa, Europe, and Middle East. She focus she is focused in areas around project management, business, and consulting, as well as with training services on business solutions. She is currently working as a digitalization project officer at DHL Global Forwarding, and as I mentioned, she already her educational background. So can please join me all in welcoming Miss Annette. Miss Annette, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Ayat, for the introduction. I would just add a bit to what she said. Rightly said, my name is Annette. I am originally from Ghana in the western part of Africa. I was born and raised there. And since my education, since my bachelor's education, I have worked in project management and business management, in training and development, and some leadership assistant roles in various organizations across Africa, Europe, and now I work in the Middle East and Bahrain specifically. So you covered everything right. I am very happy to have this opportunity to speak with you all today, especially on this topic, not only because this is something that is generally intriguing to explore, but because we are basically living in the reality of what we will discuss here. So I look forward to sharing my views with you, and I am open to comments and discussions as and when we go on. So you can feel free to type in the chat box or keep it for when we have time for question and answers. So that is a little bit about me. Ms. Ayat, I think we would start sharing the screen now and go into the presentation.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, you can start now. Can you just request for the permission?
Just give me a minute to get the control of the screen.
Sure.
So that I can.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I will just start now. Just to say, while I'm speaking, if for any reason you cannot hear me or you lose the sound, just feel free to alert me in the chat box, and then I will try to be more audible. Or if I'm moving too fast, you can just let me know, and then I would fix that. So today's topic, as was explained and briefly in the flyer that was sent out, is about the changing world and work. And again, I chose this topic because in today's world, we are living in a reality of things are rapidly changing, businesses are springing up in this changing world. And essentially, there's always the question of how we would manage business evolution, business trends to deal with this changing world. So this topic is basically to explore what these trends are, where we are going with them, and how organizations can contribute to them. So I would try to share the presentation from my side. Okay, sorry, to move the screen. Okay. So our main objectives for today's presentation is to see, first of all, the global environmental trends, specifically in businesses. Are these trends disruptive, or have they been disruptive in nature? And consequently, what opportunities and threats these pose? And of course, these topics would not be complete if we do not consider how organizations manage this world reality. And in doing so, I would look at the concept of agile transformation. So to start with, the changing world and work, one might say, it's a fairly broad concept, and which is very true given the level of diversity in business and then culture that we deal with today. And this did not start today, because when you look at how global environmental trends work, we have an evolution where we have a starting point and an end point. Things are rapidly moving towards a certain direction that is not fully controlled by the society we live in, but it's basically controlled by the human interactions we have and what we need to live into. So essentially, industries and culture try to live on these trends, try to build their businesses around these trends, and then try to make the world evolve. And of course, this can be linked back to the early transformational years with the industrial revolutions. That is, we started, the world essentially started this revolutionary stage with coal, water, steam, bringing with the steam engine and innovations that enabled the large-scale manufacturing of goods and products. And the impact of civilization at this stage was very immense. It moved on to the second industrial revolution, which came about with the innovation of electricity and enabled mass production, different production lines, this dating back to the 1800s and the 1900s. And from this phase, it emerged the internal things like combustion engines and eventually the automobile. So this period allowed much of the progress in the first industrial revolution, because it was the period where we moved beyond cities and achieved a certain scale across countries. That led to the third revolution, which was all about computers. So from the 1950s onwards, we realized that computers and digital systems enabled new ways of processing and sharing information. That's where we had the invention of microprocessors, robotics, automation, and not to mention internet and mass communications. And this would eventually allow for the ultimate in-scale globalization, essentially. So today we are living in the fourth revolution, which is also known as Industry 4.0. And we can say that it's sort of a merging of capabilities of both human and the machine. So this is the era of artificial intelligence, of things like autonomous vehicles, Internet of Things, and a whole lot of technological upskills. So in essence, this can be seen as doubling down on revolutions 1 to 3. And instead of technology being a thing that we use, it has more or less become embedded into our lives and in our bodies to affect great change. So people would always use technology, and they have always used technology. It has been available to make our lives easier. And at the same time, we have tried to perfect it and bring it to the next level. And this is how the concept of the revolutions and then industrialization and everything evolved up until this point. Trying to move to the next slide. Okay, so clearly these transformative forces have driven the world towards a certain direction, which is there's an increase in complexity in the world today. And I mean, essentially what is happening is that the different business processes, everything that is happening in the world has led to a more, sorry, Ayat, can you please confirm if you can still hear me, because I am having some feedback from my mic. Okay, so going back to the point, I am focusing on, hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You may continue.
Okay, I can continue.
Okay.
I think I had a problem with the presentation. Can you kindly reshare it?
Okay, I'll stop sharing and I'll share it again.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, just a minute.
Yep. Meanwhile, I would just keep moving on what I was talking about. I was on slide number 5. So you can actually control it from, no, slide number 5.
Okay.
If it would make it easier, you can control.
Can you request for the permission so I can give it to you?
I think it would be easier if you control it from your screen.
No
I'll
problem.
just tell you
Is this the slide you're talking about or the one after?
Before, please go back before a couple of slides. Yes, this one. Thank
This
you.
one? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I think you went forward again. Can you go back two more?
Two more after this one?
Before. I was on slide number 5, so 2 slides before, towards the beginning.
I think this is the one.
No, before. Go back one more. Okay, yes, this is
Okay.
fine.
Oh.
Okay, so I had just spoken about the industrial revolutions to basically say that the world has transformed with forces that has driven us to a certain level of complexity, and now we are at a stage where things are rapidly changing, and then business needs are changing. So companies today are no doubt scrambling to live up to the standards and then adopt and essentially adopt their processes to these digital trends that are set for us. So in the next slide, if you can switch, please, I would focus on 3 most eminent parts of companies that are essentially affected by changing business trends. And the first one being labor, where most companies today are working towards empowering their labor force by introducing certain different policies and certain engagement tools and productivity initiatives. We have always talked about borderless working, and the aim is to aid collaboration globally. So this idea is working towards enabling the workforce to become more prioritized for organizations. The second point that I want to focus on for this particular slide is the smarter business move that organizations make, which essentially focuses on innovations and economies. So what organizations are doing today is that they are investing in different technologies, different trends, and then different moves that are adopting smarter ways of doing business. And then thirdly, we talk about globalization, which involves upscaling business and in the competitive scope. So globalization can be looked at in 2 fronts. We are looking at upscaling the global interaction and localizing products such that companies can achieve the best results. So in essence, what companies are doing today is that with the changing business trends, they are trying to find the best integration to have the ideal responsiveness in the competitive space. So now what I've tried to explain in the last few slides is that the trends in the world have influenced businesses to adopt certain ways of working. And now going forward to the next slide, please, we would see that these global trends are essentially shaping up the business world up until where we are today. So personally, I would say we are in the game-changing phase of livelihood, where we have experimented with a lot of new technologies, and we are actually seeing the effects or testing, if I should call this, on these new technologies and disruptions. For example, technology and digitalization has always been a thing, but we would dare to ask if there have been some certain conversations, if there would have been some certain conversations if we were not in a world today where we are forced into some kinds of disruptions. So take the recent situation of the COVID pandemic that hits many industries and forced us to change our working lifestyle. The world was put in an immediate state of transformation, and it has had us talking more about remote working and digital service initiatives to make sure that we are more to the point of readiness when we talk about digitalization and how digitalized we can be. Now, the usual misconception about digitalization is the idea of it being a tool. And in my opinion, I would use common examples to explain this. Digitalization can simply be looked as an approach of going from one process to the other, so in a more efficient way. The core of it is not to change the end game or the outcome, but to have a more efficient and essentially a valuable process to the end consumer or the person that is patronizing whatever product. So think of it this way: we wanted to communicate in the past. And how would we do this? We would walk up to a person's office to have a meeting, or essentially walk up to the person to just talk about something. But today, there are so many ways of communication, and that makes it, the outcome still there, still relevant, but makes it faster, more efficient, and then more reliable in a sense. So what I'm trying to explain here, that again, is that digitalization could be seen as a world concept mostly supported by tools. And then the idea of moving from one process to another process is essentially expected. And the next slide, I would like to put this idea into perspective with a basic scenario of a product or service organization that has hit its processes from start to end. That is essentially, in patronizing a service or a product, the consumer would go from step to step, from the requisition stage up until the stage of getting the product. Now, in today's organization, we see that the consumer has to indeed still go through these stages that were there before, but companies, so for example, in this case, company Y has employed a number of tools and systems that support the same process in a faster and a simpler way. So in essence, these are the things that on a normal day, the normal consumer does not explore to understand what exactly is working or what exactly is happening there, but they are able to go through the process as should be, because the enablers, that is the digitalization factors, have made this possible. Now, a common example, if you would go to the next slide, is how the e-commerce industry works. We have a situation where an industry that we in the past could not have imagined going digital has completely gone through a certain transformational phase, and that has made it one of the benchmarks for most retail companies. Imagine companies like Amazon, Alibaba, and other retail sites, how they operate. Right from the first stage of a consumer patronizing the product up until delivery and feedback stage, everything is completely controlled by the evolution of the digitalization and then the tools and the trends that have been embedded in the processes. So what I am trying to explain with this whole idea of digitalization is that the trends of the world have led businesses to shape up in a certain way. And now we are in Industry 4.0, as I mentioned, and most businesses have started talking about going fully digital, if not already started those processes, because that is where the world has pushed us to be, and that is where we are working towards getting to. Now, as to whether, if you can move to the next slide, please, as to whether these transformations have had an impact on businesses, yes, we can say that is evident. However, the question we would want to ask is, are we looking at a business world where we would embrace the new way of business culture, which is the digital and transformational trends, or are these ventures too risky to be explored? Just to note here also that the idea of digital transformation and digital disruption are very similar, but could be are very distinct, but could be a bit confusing as similar. So what I'm trying to say here is that the concept of digital disruption is sort of an environmental turbulence, if you would call it, that is induced by this digital innovation or transformation. So it leads to eroding certain boundaries and processes that previously served as the foundation of a system. And now I would want to make this clear. We have companies transforming their business to meet up with the world reality, and digital disruptions will occur in some industries. And today, if we talk about why companies fail, we would be asking around what new innovations are not adopted in their processes. What are they doing wrong? Is the competition too much? What do they need to do to make their processes more consumer and work feasible? understandably, some companies will embrace this process change or this digital trend change more slowly because of the type of industries in which they are in. But what we can look at is, of course, the change is a very hard thing. However, the fact that the world trends have caused these disruptive technologies to be formed does not give much room for opting out. You are either in a competitive space with other red ocean players and struggling to survive, or you would want to be that red ocean player and have a distinct business model according to the reality of the world today. So essentially, we can talk about whether digitalization is digitalization in the world poses a threat or it serves as an opportunity. If you can move to the next slide, please. So in this case, I focused on disruptions occurring in areas that directly affect our way of life, because that is what exactly these disruptions are designed or defined to be. They come about, they exist, directly affecting things that we have worked on, or the way we have worked in the world for as long as we have known. And then what is happening is that we have areas such as transportation, hospitality, and all these others you can see on the screen. The list goes on and on with the sectors that have been disrupted. And the key thing here we would want to ask is that have these, if these disruptions had occurred a few years ago, would the world be prepared to deal with it in the business sense? In this case, the situation of consumer satisfaction versus cost of investment is something that can come up, because ultimately these disruptions are occurring. They are satisfying consumers in a way that we did not think of doing before. People are doing things faster, people are doing things more easily, and they are happy about that. At the same time, companies would have to invest more, would have to input more, would have to risk more to make this possible. So that is the trade-off that we have to look at in this sentence, in this situation. And I usually look at it this way. I doubt a company would dare to say we would stick to our old way of work simply because it's easier for them, or because the trends are shaping everything, but we cannot afford to move according to these trends. And the idea of disruption is not something that we can easily get rid of when it comes to digitalization, because I usually like to use my parents, for example, as an example in this case, to say that a few years ago, we would have had a long argument on why we need to, I would have said we do not need to go all the way there or walk all the way to the supermarket or do something to get the outcome of what we want to achieve. And it would have been a back and forth argument. But today, one of the biggest priorities is for them to have data on their phone, because they have seen how everything works easily with technology, everything works easily with the Internet of Things, all the connections they are experiencing makes things go easier for them with the digital world we're living in. So the idea is we can look at it from a consumer perspective. On one hand, we can say that the consumers, the need to satisfy the consumers and the digital trends, digital and global trends, are pushing the way the businesses are shaped. At the same time, the businesses would need to see what needs to change and how they need to do that and adopt it, in fear of not being kicked out of their competitive space. So in the next slide, if you can please move, I would just touch on some of these disruptions that shape the business world. There are so many coming up these days, but these are the most talked about ones because they are the most evident in all aspects of our business, from the data collection to analyzing to sales to making everything happen, to getting feedback from consumers. These are the major things and the major tools and functions that are used. Speaking of artificial intelligence, we're basically talking about similarly also called machine learning. This is just basically intelligence that is demonstrated by machines. Machines that mimic the cognitive abilities that human beings would on a normal day have done. So like problem solving, natural intelligence displayed, and things along that line. Blockchain, when we say, is we're actually talking about digital information that is stored in a public database. So the blockchain technology is used for several purposes, including the next point, which is the cryptocurrency. Its underlying technology would be the blockchain. And in addition, blockchain is used for supply chain management, for example, in shipping companies. So just moving straight to cryptocurrencies and talking briefly about that, we are all aware of how cryptocurrencies are here to try to stay, if that is the word I should use, because this has been introduced, and this is something that is making headway in the market. However, we can have a whole conversation about cryptocurrency, and if this particular disruption would strive in the market. That is something that can be discussed on another day. But just to put a perspective, or to get back to the point, I would like to just focus on the fact that this particular disruption was not imagined a number of years ago. We did not imagine having a system where the currency market can be disrupted or even slightly influenced. But here we are today with these kind of new things coming up. In addition, we have 3D printing and virtual reality that also support businesses in other aspects. And I'd like to bring this together or relate these points to the Internet of Things, where we are talking about a system of interrelated computing devices, mechanical and digital machines, provided with unique identifiers and the ability to transfer data over network without requiring human-to-human or human-to-computer interaction. So imagine all that we have highlighted so far. We have looked at the world trends and how they support business transformation. And now we have talked about the world reality and the future, which is digitalization, and the fact that we are here in this digital era because the evolutions and the changes in the way we do and respond to these things essentially shape the business world. So one important thing we can now ask ourselves is, how do we change the world of work to meet up with this? There's absolutely, and I usually say this when I am talking in work and then even on social levels, there's absolutely no one solution fits all. We cannot have one solution that fits everything, especially with the type of world we live in. And this is where we will hit on the need for something innovative like Agile transformation. So can you kindly take me to the next slide? Okay. So Agile transformation, before we go into this, I have spoken a lot about the trends and then the shapers and what has led us to this concept. I would just pause and ask if we have any questions or contributions before I move into this concept of Agile transformation.
If you have a question, kindly raise your hand so I can unmute you to ask the question to the speaker directly.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think that we have a question until now.
Okay.
We'll leave it at the end. Just You can move on.
Okay, I will assume that that's because everything I'm saying is clear so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
okay. So
and I did not put anybody to sleep yet.
No, we are not sleep. We can hear you.
Okay, that's great.
Then you can move on.
Okay, thank you. So going into Agile transformation, just to introduce this whole point of it, Agile transformation is not just about technology. It's about a new way of thinking. It's more collaborative, it's more open, it's more creative, and much more efficient than other business models. And it's something that can be implemented across a company, not just in one or two departments. And usually the transformation covers three main areas. That is structure. This is how how your organization would form teams and the level of in different levels of the company. we talk about governance and metrics and tools. Governance in the sense of the way in which the organization would intake work, make decisions about priorities and balances work capacity with demand, and as well as the different coordination across teams. And in terms of metrics, we are talking about how you're going to measure your organizational performance. This is about gathering metrics, showing improvement, and communicating these metrics to the appropriate stakeholders. Just to give you an example, a typical KPI is delivery time, for example, measured from the moment a customer has request or the customer's request is accepted up until the moment it is delivered to production. So in an agile transformative business module, these are some of the things we'll be looking at in terms of the metrics and tools for governance and structure. Now, I am sure you have noticed that the popularity of transformation has skyrocketed in the last couple of years. People are talking more about it. To work, they would probably mention one of these companies as a place that is their ideal working environment, not because these companies have anything in common so far. I mean, they don't have that much in common in terms of how they operate, because actually none of these companies operate in the same industries. So why are people so interested in the way the working lifestyle is because they have a common culture, and that is a particular way of working. And it's so distinctive that we see a lot of other companies that have previously had strict working cultures now employing this new working culture. So the idea is to use the intrinsic culture to influence the results you're going to give to your customers or your consumers at the end of the day. So we have, for example, ING, we even have Deloitte and McKinsey that are giants in the consulting fields, adopting these agile transformative methodologies and trying to implement this. Of course, the company type and skill will determine the detail of the process, and however, the concept and the core would remain the same. So if you can go to the next slide for me, the fundamentals of agile transformation, that is what I'll talk about going forward, involves teams building backlogs and producing increments on working tested software regularly. Agile transformation would create a network of teams managing trade-offs, putting together dependencies, and getting things out in the market quickly, as well as measuring through the process. So in order for a business to benefit fully from agile transformation, you must understand the correct way to plan and the correct moves to make. You must transform your business, the way you work, while moving away from the concept of the big bang product releases and towards incremental delivery of products, essentially. I put this simple image up because I wanted to draw our minds to what the whole idea of agile transformation means. Again, as I mentioned, it's not just talking about technologies, it's talking about a way of life, a culture of an organization, moving from the old way to the new way. And in the next slides, I will try to explain what features or what different segments we can look at in this agile transformative skill that we're looking at. So agility, of course, is relevant for all levels and scopes and skills of businesses. And the trademarks include a network of teams within people, a people-centered culture that operates in a rapid learning and a fast decision cycle, which is enabled by technology, and a common purpose that co-creates value for stakeholders. So this essentially is to say that it guarantees certain key outcomes. For example, accelerated growth. when you deploy an agile process in your working environment, it moves your company toward accelerated growth. You are talking about moving a medium or a small scale industry towards large scale business world. In terms of realignment, we are talking, as I stated earlier, about the ever-changing world and its effects, whether positive or negative, on the working environment. Agility would build resistance and resilience. So it enforces the relativity and then essentially the adaptable nature, making it easy for companies to either restructure, to re-strategize, and then to remain relevant in their customers and client markets. So in this case, it's basically saying that if you want to live in the current changing world, you would need to restructure or realign your processes to go with those trends in a more agile and flexible way. In terms of the startup, the foundation of every business is determined by how successful or not the venture would be. Every startup needs to employ the principles and values of an agile transformative business to secure the relevance and stay in the market. So startups would essentially have to start from the core of what it means to build a business around this module, to make sure that as you grow and upscale to the eventual end game of being a globalized business or being a blue ocean player or have a blue ocean strategy, employing an agile methodology would enable you to have the right factors and features to support this transformation, or this start and then transformation eventually. In terms of the turnaround, we're talking about efficiency and effectiveness, and that is the hallmark of the Agile framework. The turnaround for this, for achieving results and realizing the monetary gains, and hitting the return on investment, getting back your financial growth, is what we use to measure the success or the input of what this transformative circle has given to us. And the last thing which is in this circle is sustained growth, because one thing we can realize about most businesses, or the most difficult thing, is sustainability or business continuity, if we would put it that way. So the Agile process takes a proactive approach. So it takes a proactive approach to running operations and essentially curtailing challenges before it's late. So we do not want the company we don't want something that would cost the company. So it's important to have a certain process that would have this proactivity to eventually diverge from any sort of challenges that are coming. It also helps various portfolios in the company build strong systems and structure, able to break down of goals and missions into smaller fragments. And this creates a good data system to keep informed strategies. So if you're familiar with work breakdown structures and how useful they are in project management, you would understand what I mean by breaking down the strategies into smaller fragments and then using that as sort of a stepping stone to build on your business module. If you can move to the next slide, please. So in essence, what I am trying to explain here is that we do have a certain culture that is called the Agile culture that we try to make businesses, we try to explain to businesses it should be the way of having their lifestyle built on, such that the Agile transformative method would work with them. So this is essentially looking at a sort of a governance module that focuses on the culture, and that is centered on team delivery, portfolio, and operating systems. Now, as organizations bring together a range of different skills, so Agile transformation involves creating a team culture where we have where people have the right skill, and the main aim is to facilitate basically, or sort of an overhaul and improvements using unique project teams. So as Agile transformation is a government process, the impact will be both on technical and managerial aspects in the business. And the Agile culture involves team delivery, resulting in essentially the change in the way an organizational operating system and the portfolio is based. So the culture is depicted on certain features that are being data-driven, quality, and all these other key elements that support the entire process. So the idea here is to say that this agile way of working is not just a concept or a tool that has been developed to tell businesses this is what you have to do. It is a culture. And if you would notice how other companies have adopted it, I had mentioned before that we've had the giants, some of the giants of the consulting firms adopt these strategies, not because they are tools, again, that should just be adopted to understand what is happening, but because it is a way of life, it's a culture that works for organizations, that works in transforming organizations from where they were to where they have to be. So what I'm trying to say is that in a nutshell, to explain it, this concept more clearly, global trends influence the need for business transformation. And in order to enter this changing world with ease, adopting the agile way of work is ideal. Now, business transformation or the change affects all the key core areas of businesses. And if you can just move to the next slide. We are talking about change methodologies, including the agile way. We would have to deep dive into all these things to understand how these different aspects of the businesses can be transformed using the agile methodologies with various steps, various ideas, and various functions that we'd be looking at. Looking at these key focus business areas on the screen, you would notice that this essentially covers every part of the organization that is that supports each other to build the outcome of what a good organization or a great organization can become. So we are trying to say that in order to effect the change that we want to see to deal with the business world, we would have to ensure that, first of all, understanding where the trend of the world is, understanding where we are in this global environment would enable us to know where our company's position is, and coupled with the understanding of how we can transform or the need to transform, adopting agile methodologies in our businesses can make us have a more feasible way of moving to the end goal. So I personally, I would just to add this as a summary, I have engaged with a number of teams in transforming the way we work and the way the world evolves, and some key common needs and characteristics that formulated a series of knowledge compasses relevant for organizations is what has helped build this idea of what needs to be done for companies, or what information needs to be re-emphasized, or what needs to be out there. So for example, the Beldy project, which is something that I work closely on, is and that I have over the years used to create certain training platforms, breaks down different compasses, including different sessions and series that are interconnected. So we are looking at, although we have talked in depth about agile transformation this evening, in the terms of what to do or where agile transformation fits in the business needs and digitalization, these topics are part of a series under the business continuity block that you saw in the previous slide. And this is to say, or to re-emphasize, that one solution does not fit all. Businesses are different, change is inevitable, and you can just imagine your business and what it would be post world disruptions. So for example, this COVID-19 reality gave a lot of businesses setbacks, and it's just interesting or it's intriguing to think about what would have been different if these transformative modules, or if these transformations were adopted using certain methodologies before we were pushed into a situation where we had to change the way we work. That undoubtedly is not too late. We are at a point where we have realized what the businesses are lacking, what the world is lacking. And of course, conversations are going to start more around this topic and what needs to be done. So I would leave this thought in mind. And then I would say that in a nutshell, The whole idea of this presentation was to make you understand where we look at the world today, what is changing, how the working culture can adapt to these changes, and an example of what can be done to support certain businesses, focusing on the fact that we are looking at effective processes at the end of the day. Thank you for your attention. I took 3 minutes over the time for questions, but now if you have any questions or contributions, like I said in the beginning, this is a platform to learn from everybody. So if you have any contributions or comments, I think we can take them now.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much, Annie, for the presentation. There's a lot of information, actually, valuable
Yes.
information, to be honest. Um, First, I'll give the chance for the participants. If they have any question, kindly raise your hand so I can unmute you to ask the question. I think we don't have a question. Okay. Okay, then I'll go into the chat. So participants, thanking you for the presentation. Also, they're saying it is very informative. There is a question from one of the participants named Mahmoud Ahmed. Okay, so his question is how risk management has been used to facilitate the elements of prioritization since you have noted business continuity.
Okay. Thank you, Mahmoud. Very, very good question, very important question. And I'm saying this because risk management is actually one of the key aspects or key topics that we usually look at when we are talking about the entire loop of business continuity. So I would attempt to answer your question. When we talk about how risk management has been used to facilitate these elements, first of all, when we talk about risk management, we're trying to talk about how to avert certain situations that organizations are not essentially, either they are foreseeable or not prepared for. These organizations are not prepared for. And in essence, we have to adopt certain steps and strategies to avert this risk, to manage it, to control it, or to totally eliminate it. And if you have been face to face with certain problem solving or certain situations that require problem solving, you would realize that most of the time the attempt to mitigate the risk is what is the most evident in businesses these days, because again, I explained in the beginning that global trends are sort of unpredictable. We can only imagine where the world is going to based on the evolution and where it had started to where it is today. However, we do not know for sure, and this is why the question of the disruption came into place. We do not know for sure what disruptive technology or what disruption can come into these trends to make it more, make the change for businesses harder. So it's best to understand risk management as part of an agile transformative culture, in the sense that since the idea for this transformation is building a good culture, a certain type of culture, averting risk or risk management techniques, in a sense, should be embedded in this culture. And I will take you back to the slide that talked about the cycle from the team management to the portfolio and organizational management. You would realize that these are in effect. So if risk management is to be used as an element and then to prioritize business continuity, what I would answer to your question is you would have to involve that, embed that in the transformative culture, such that we are not doing two things separately, because these sort of the starting points sort of evolve together.
Would you like me to go
Mr.
through the
Mahmoud,
slides?
I would like to ask if I have answered Mr. Mahmoud's question, or he would
Let me
need
just
some further.
see. Mahmoud, is it okay? Totally agrees. Totally agree with you. Being a manager of PI and PMO, the focus on risk management could not be
Yeah,
of higher importance. This is
exactly. And
this
one,
holds.
okay, thank you very much for that. And one thing that is mostly encouraged as part of these transformative methods or methodologies is to have certain experts run risk analysis to understand what is happening in the organization and how you can avert it. So thank you very much for that question. And it has also given me the chance to think in another light of what can be considered in this. So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Does somebody have another question for Ms. Amit? Kindly write your question in the chat, or you can raise your hand to unmute you to ask it directly to her. Okay, I think we're done. Thank you very much for your time, for your contribution to BSTD presentation. If you want to say anything before we're done.
Yes, just to also say thank you for the platform. Maybe there are no questions now, but I think my contact is on the flyer, and I'll be engaging with the society more going forward. So if there are any more opportunities to have discussions around these topics, or to join in the sessions and have more follow-up series concerning this, I would be happy to join. I would be happy to listen as well to some of the colleagues, and I am available by you can contact me from the information on the flyer. And I am happy to speak to anyone from the society to talk about these kind of topics, because again, it's the reality we are living in, and we cannot avoid talking about it. So again, my pleasure, and it was a good opportunity.
Thank you very much. As for the publishing your contact information, before that, I would like to share a quick survey to the participants to tell us how they think about tonight's presentation. So shortly, I will send the emails with the surveys, and I will include your information, your contact information in the email itself. If they have any question, they can connect to you directly on email. Okay, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us in BSTD for this presentation, and have a good night.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.